My beloved child. Don't skip. There is a reason these words have reached you at this exact moment, and before this message ends, the image you have carried of your soulmate may completely change. Because there is something about this person you have not been allowed to see yet. Something they have carefully kept beneath ordinary conversations, quiet smiles, unanswered questions, and those strange moments when you felt there was more behind their eyes than they were willing to reveal. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate is not exactly who they pretend to be. But listen carefully, because this does not mean what you think it means. This is not a story about betrayal. It is not a story about someone secretly trying to hurt you. The truth is far more emotional than that. Your soulmate has been hiding a part of themselves because they are terrified that if you discover who they really are, everything between you will change. And the secret? It has something to do with why they entered your life appearing so ordinary. You may have looked at them and wondered why they sometimes pull away just when the connection becomes stronger. Why they can speak openly about almost anything, yet suddenly become quiet when the conversation turns toward their past. Why there are certain questions they answer with a smile instead of words. Why they sometimes look at you as though they already know what you are about to say. Why they remember tiny details you mentioned only once. Why your happiness seems to matter to them more deeply than they admit. You noticed these things. Perhaps you dismissed them. Perhaps you told yourself you were imagining the connection. But something inside you kept whispering that there was another layer. And there is. Don't skip now, because the first piece of the truth is about to surface. Your soulmate has spent a long time learning how to appear emotionally stronger than they really are. Around other people, they may seem calm. Independent. Certain. Perhaps even difficult to read. They learned how to say, "I'm fine," when they were carrying questions no one could see. They learned how to smile while protecting the most vulnerable pieces of themselves. And eventually, that mask became so natural that almost everyone believed it. Almost everyone. Except you. Something about you made that carefully constructed version of them begin to crack. Not in a bad way. You simply noticed things other people overlooked. The pause before they answered certain questions. The softness that appeared in their voice when they spoke to you. The way their confidence sometimes disappeared when they realized you could actually understand them. And this frightened them. Because your soulmate has spent much of their life believing that being completely known means becoming completely vulnerable. Then you appeared. And suddenly they faced something they had not prepared themselves for. Someone who might see beyond the version of themselves they show the world. Stay till the end. Because this is only the first layer. There is another truth behind it, and when you hear it, you may finally understand why this connection has felt different. Your soulmate has been carrying a private dream. A dream involving love, stability, belonging, and building something real with one person. Yet strangely, they rarely speak about it. Why? Because at some point they became afraid of hoping too loudly. They learned that when you tell everyone what matters most to you, people sometimes misunderstand it. So they became private. They stopped explaining themselves. They began letting others assume whatever they wanted. And this is where the mystery becomes deeper. Because the person you may have thought was uncertain about love may actually be someone who takes love incredibly seriously. The person you thought was emotionally distant may actually feel everything intensely. The person who seems as though they could walk away without looking back may secretly be the person most afraid of losing something genuine. And the person who appears to need nobody may have quietly been waiting for one person they could finally trust. You. Don't skip. Because something huge is waiting for you, and we have not reached the real revelation yet. There was a moment when your soulmate realized their feelings for you were no longer casual. It did not necessarily happen during some dramatic conversation. It may have happened during something incredibly small. A sentence you said. A laugh. A moment when you showed kindness without expecting anything in return. Perhaps you remembered something important to them. Perhaps you spoke to them differently from everyone else. Perhaps you simply made them feel understood. Whatever the moment was, something shifted. And suddenly the person who had spent so long controlling their emotions realized they could no longer control what your presence meant to them. That realization created two opposite feelings. Hope. And fear. Hope because they had finally encountered the kind of connection they secretly wanted. Fear because now they had something meaningful to lose. So they did something confusing. They hid more. They acted normal. They tried to convince themselves that the connection was not becoming serious. They may even have created distance. And if you ever wondered why someone could seem deeply interested one moment and strangely reserved the next, this may be the emotional contradiction behind it. They were not necessarily running from you. They were running from how strongly they were beginning to feel. Stay till the end. The next piece changes everything. There is a side of your soulmate that almost nobody gets to meet. Behind the composed exterior is someone surprisingly sentimental. Someone who remembers conversations. Someone who replays meaningful moments. Someone who notices changes in your mood. Someone who may have wondered what a future beside you would actually feel like. And they have probably imagined more than they have admitted. Simple things. Talking late into the evening. Laughing about something nobody else understands. Being there when life becomes difficult. Celebrating your victories. Building routines together. Having someone beside them who feels less like excitement and more like home. That is what they have been hiding. But it goes deeper. Because your soulmate is not pretending to be someone else because they want to deceive you. They are pretending to need less than they actually need. They pretend they do not care as much as they do. They pretend certain conversations do not affect them. They pretend they are completely comfortable with uncertainty. They pretend they have not imagined what might happen if the two of you finally stopped hiding behind hesitation. And every time they do this, there is a part of them quietly hoping you will somehow understand what they cannot yet say. Something huge is waiting for you. Don't skip. Because now we are approaching the secret behind their identity. There is something else your soulmate has hidden, not a name, not a false life, but an ambition. Something about their future is much bigger than the version of themselves they currently show. They may be quietly building something. Preparing for something. Studying. Planning. Saving. Creating. Changing direction. Working toward a future they have told very few people about. And this matters because your soulmate does not want to approach you with empty promises. They want to become someone capable of offering consistency. Not perfection. Consistency. They want their words and actions to match. That is why there may have been delays. That is why there may have been silence. That is why sometimes it seems as though something is happening behind the scenes. Because emotionally, this person has been asking themselves a serious question. If I finally tell them how important they are to me, am I ready to prove it? That question has followed them longer than you realize. And the answer is beginning to change. Stay till the end. You are getting closer. Your soulmate has reached a point where pretending everything is ordinary is becoming exhausting. They can no longer comfortably place you in the same category as everyone else. You have become different. Your name creates a different reaction. Your absence feels different. Your attention feels different. Your silence feels different. Even an ordinary interaction with you can stay in their mind far longer than they expected. And somewhere along the way, they realized something that terrified them. You could become the person they had been preparing themselves to meet without even knowing it. That is why this connection feels unfinished. There are words still waiting to be spoken. There are truths still waiting to be acknowledged. And there is one particular truth your soulmate has struggled hardest to reveal. Don't skip now. Because this is where the story begins to turn. They are not afraid that you will discover something terrible about them. They are afraid you will discover how deeply they care. Think about that. The great secret is not darkness. It is depth. This person has carefully built an image of emotional independence because it protected them. But you are making that protection unnecessary. And that is unfamiliar territory. Imagine spending years learning how to lock every emotional door. Then one person arrives and does not force anything open. They simply stand outside patiently. They speak gently. They remain themselves. And somehow the locks begin opening from the inside. That is what this connection represents. You did not have to chase their heart. Something about you simply made their heart remember what trust could feel like. Something huge is waiting for you. Stay till the end. Because now comes the part they would probably struggle to tell you themselves. There have been moments when your soulmate nearly revealed everything. A message almost sent. A conversation almost started. A confession almost made. They may have typed words and erased them. They may have rehearsed sentences while alone. They may have imagined your reaction. Would you be surprised? Would you believe them? Would you feel the same? Would you wonder why they waited so long? That final question matters. Because they know their silence has created confusion. They know their hesitation may have made you question whether this connection mattered to them. And secretly, they wish they could explain that their silence was never the whole story. Behind the silence was thought. Behind the distance was emotion. Behind the uncertainty was someone trying to understand how to approach something they did not want to ruin. Don't skip. Because the final revelation is getting closer. There is one quality in you that your soulmate did not expect. You make them want to become more honest. Not simply with you. With themselves. Before you, they could pretend they did not want deep connection. They could bury themselves in routines, goals, distractions, responsibilities, and everyday life. They could tell themselves love could wait. Then you arrived and quietly challenged that entire story. Because suddenly love was no longer an abstract idea. It had a face, a voice, a personality, a presence. And that presence became difficult to ignore. That is why something inside them has been changing. Your soulmate may not yet have explained this transformation, but internally they have begun making decisions. They are asking what matters, what kind of future they want, what kind of person they want beside them, what they are willing to release, what they are finally ready to admit. And your presence keeps appearing somewhere inside those questions. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. There is another detail. Your soulmate has been more observant than you think. They have noticed the things you try to hide too. The moments when you pretend you are okay. The times you become quieter. The way you sometimes protect yourself emotionally. They have noticed your strength, but they have also sensed the tenderness underneath it. And perhaps that is why this connection has become so powerful. Because beneath two different masks are two people who may understand each other more deeply than either expected. You may have been wondering who your soulmate really is. Maybe you expected the answer to be something dramatic. A celebrity. A mysterious stranger. Someone living an unbelievable double life. But the deeper revelation is more meaningful. Your soulmate is someone who has been pretending to be emotionally untouchable while secretly carrying one of the softest hearts you will ever encounter. They are a dreamer disguised as a realist. A deeply loyal person disguised as someone who needs nobody. A future builder disguised as someone simply living day by day. And most importantly, they are someone slowly realizing they do not want to keep pretending around you. But wait. There is still one final layer. Don't skip. Because what happens next is the part that changes the meaning of everything before it. Your soulmate has been waiting for a sign too. Not necessarily some supernatural event. Something much simpler. They have been waiting to feel safe enough. Safe enough to speak. Safe enough to stop performing. Safe enough to let you see the uncertain parts. Safe enough to admit they have hopes they cannot guarantee. Safe enough to tell you that behind all their confidence is a person who still wonders whether someone could truly choose them and stay. And you may be closer to that moment than you realize. Because recently, something changed inside them. The possibility of losing the connection began to feel heavier than the possibility of being vulnerable. Read that again in your heart. For a long time, fear told them, stay quiet. But another feeling is becoming stronger. What if staying quiet costs me the person I actually wanted? That question is becoming impossible for them to ignore. Something huge is waiting for you. Stay till the end. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that some connections cannot survive forever inside unspoken words. Eventually, someone has to become brave. Someone has to stop guessing. Someone has to say what the silence has been trying to communicate. And this person may be closer to that point than they have ever been before. They are tired of pretending your presence does not affect them. Tired of pretending they have never imagined something deeper. Tired of treating meaningful feelings like ordinary thoughts. And perhaps most of all, tired of wondering what would happen if they simply told you the truth. Because the truth is surprisingly simple. Your soulmate is not who they pretend to be. They pretend to be someone who can comfortably live without deep emotional attachment. But in reality, Your soulmate is a protector, a builder, a quiet dreamer. Someone who loves carefully because when they finally give their heart to something, they want it to mean something. They do not want temporary promises. They do not want beautiful words without action. They want something they can build. Something peaceful. Something loyal. Something where two people can look at one another without pretending. And behind all the mystery, that may be exactly why they have taken so long. Because they were not simply deciding whether they liked you. They were deciding whether they were ready for what loving you could mean. Don't skip. There is one last thing. The greatest transformation in this story is not that your soulmate will suddenly become a completely different person. It is that they may finally allow you to meet the person who was there all along. The person beneath the confidence. Beneath the silence. Beneath the hesitation. Beneath the carefully chosen words. That person is softer. More thoughtful. More ambitious. More emotional. More hopeful. And much more serious about you than their outward behavior has allowed you to understand. That is the revelation. But the story does not end with revelation. It begins there. Because once someone becomes tired of hiding what they feel, something inevitably changes. A conversation becomes different. A message becomes longer. A question becomes more personal. A silence becomes impossible to maintain. And eventually, the truth asks to be spoken. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. Your soulmate has reached the edge between hiding and revealing. Between pretending and becoming real. Between protecting themselves and finally allowing someone closer. And perhaps the most surprising thing is this. They once believed revealing their true heart would make them weaker. Now they are beginning to understand that the right person will not use vulnerability against them. The right connection will make honesty feel like freedom. And somewhere deep inside, they are wondering whether that person could be you. So if you have felt that there is more to this story, more behind their silence, more behind their eyes, more behind those moments that seemed ordinary but somehow stayed with you, perhaps that feeling is exactly what makes this story so compelling. Because sometimes the greatest secret someone can hide is not a shocking identity. It is the enormous heart behind a carefully controlled exterior. Your soulmate is not who they pretend to be. In reality, your soulmate is a person preparing to stop pretending. A person who wants to be known. A person who wants something genuine. A person who has begun imagining what honesty with you could look like. And the next chapter? That is where everything becomes interesting. Because the moment the mask finally falls, one question will remain. What will they say first? Will they admit how long they have felt this? Will they explain why they kept pulling back? Will they reveal the private future they have been quietly building? Or will they finally confess the one sentence they have been too afraid to say? Don't skip. Stay till the end. Because something huge is waiting for you. And the truth your soulmate has been hiding may be far bigger than the secret we have uncovered today. There is still one piece missing. One piece connected to their past. One piece that explains why they became so guarded in the first place. And once that piece comes into the light, you may finally understand why meeting you changed them so profoundly. Because your soulmate was not only hiding their feelings. They were hiding the reason they recognized something special in you almost immediately. And that reason changes everything.